Hello and welcome to Vantage this week, a show where we recap the top events from the week gone by. It was a busy week for the Indian Supreme Court. A 5-judge bench upheld the government's decision to end Jammu and Kashmir's autonomy. They said abrogating Article 370 was legal. We'll take a look at what this verdict means, also how Kashmir has changed since 2019. At the United Nations, New Delhi surprised the world. It sided with 152 countries in calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. We'll tell you why India changed its position. Meanwhile, there is terror in the Red Sea. Yemen's Houthi rebels are striking commercial vessels in the region. It could be a big headache for ordinary consumers around the world. In the Maldives, there is trouble in paradise. The new ruling coalition has split. The India-out architect Abdullah Yameen has been sidelined by his own party. It's a civil war between him and the new president, Mohammad Muizzu. Also, are we heading towards a second Cold War? The IMF has a warning. It could cost the global economy trillions of dollars. We'll tell you how. And finally, are you an early bird or a night owl? Studies say the answer could depend on your ancestors. All this and more coming up. Let's get started. Today was a big day at India's Supreme Court. An important case was on the docket, the case of Kashmir and Article 370. The case was made up of around 23 petitions. They dealt with a lot of complicated issues and questions, but the most important one was this. Was abrogating Article 370 constitutional or not? That was the question. 5 judges were part of this bench, and all of them said yes. Abrogating Article 370 was constitutional. It did not violate Indian laws or the Indian Constitution. Listen to what the Chief Justice said.
Article 370 is a temporary provision on a reading of the historical context in which it was included. The state of Jammu and Kashmir does not have internal sovereignty which is distinguishable from the powers and privileges enjoyed by other states in the country.
Now for some background. Article 370 was part of the Indian Constitution. It gave special powers to Jammu and Kashmir, like which laws would apply there and so on. They had special powers, but in 2019, the central government abrogated it. They said no more special powers. Also, Jammu and Kashmir was split up. One state was divided into 2 union territories, Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. These were the 2 union territories. Now, critics say this move was unconstitutional, which is why they approached the Supreme Court of India. And today, the court gave the verdict. They said the move was legal. The abrogation of Article 370, the division of the state into union territories, it was all legal. This verdict was based on 2 basic facts. Number 1, Article 370 or special powers was temporary. It was not meant to last forever. And number 2, Jammu and Kashmir does not have sovereignty of its own. Yes, it had a special agreement, but that agreement did not mean any sort of sovereignty. Hence, removing Article 370 was constitutional. That's what the court said. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has praised the verdict. He called it a declaration of hope and progress. What about the political parties in Kashmir? They've expressed disappointment. Most of them said the fight will continue. The fight for statehood and for special powers. They'll keep pushing for it. But tonight, we do not want to dwell on the politics. I'm sure you've seen and heard enough of it. Tonight, we're looking at Kashmir's journey since 2019, the good and the bad. Let's look at the economy first. In 2019, Jammu and Kashmir's economic output was 1 lakh crore rupees. And now, it is more than 2,27,000 crore rupees. So it's more than doubled. The economic survey is predicting another bump. It says the output will double again in 5 years. Same with tourism. Around 18 million tourists visited Jammu and Kashmir in 2022. It was an all-time high, a record. But looks like this year will be even better. Footfall is expected to be 22 million by the end of 2023, by the end of this month. So again, great news. Foreign investments are also trickling in. Earlier this year, the UAE's Emaar Group struck a deal. We're talking about the makers of Burj Khalifa. That's the Emaar Group. They will be investing around 500 crore rupees in Kashmir. The plan is for a shopping mall near Srinagar. It could generate up to 10,000 jobs. So the economy is doing well. What about security? That's always been a big issue in Kashmir. Well, the numbers from the Home Ministry are positive. They've compared two periods, from 2016 to 2019 and from 2019 to 2022. And here's what they found. Terror attacks are down 32%. Civilian deaths are down 14%. And deaths of security officers have fallen by 52%. Even stone pelting is down. More than 600 pelting incidents were reported in the first half of 2019. By 2021, it was down to 76, from 600 to 76. So the overall security has improved. But is it perfect? Of course not. Targeted killings have emerged as a problem. Kashmiri Hindus and non-Kashmiris have been targeted. So that issue very much remains. And so does the question of elections. Jammu and Kashmir's last legislative elections were held in 2014. It's been nearly a decade. There is talk of an election next year, but no dates have been set, which is why the Supreme Court waded in today. They've issued a directive to the Election Commission of India, hold elections by the end of September 2024. Hold elections by then. They also had a directive for the central government, restore Kashmir's statehood soon. And that was the promise made in 2019, that the post-abrogation period would be used to do important work on security, on the economy, on the politics, all of it. But after that, statehood would be restored. So the top court wants the government to follow through, to do what they said they would. Now, this judgment will be talked about in the future. Lawyers will quote it. Political parties will campaign on it. It will be discussed threadbare. But it's important to remember one thing. This verdict is not the end. It's just one part of Kashmir's long and rich history. The end would be a prosperous and safe Kashmir, one that was promised in 1947 and again in 2019. What does victory look like? It's a question that Israel should think about. On October 7, the whole world was with them, even Arab states. There was sympathy, there was grief, there was genuine support. Such was the brutality of the Hamas attack. But 68 days later, that is not the case. The global sentiment has changed, and in many ways, India is the best example of it. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was among the first to release a statement on October 7th. He condemned the attack. He supported Israel's right to self-defense. But now things have changed. On Tuesday, the United Nations General Assembly, the UNGA, voted on a resolution. It called for a ceasefire in Gaza. 153 countries voted in support for it. They supported a ceasefire. And among them was India. It's a clear shift in policy. A similar resolution had been proposed in October as well, calling for a ceasefire. Back then, India had abstained. New Delhi did not support or reject it in October. So what has changed this time? Listen to what India's United Nations envoy had to say.
There is an enormous humanitarian crisis and the large-scale loss of civilian lives, especially of women and children. There is the issue of observing international humanitarian law in all circumstances. And there is the endeavor to find a peaceful and lasting two-state solution to the long-standing Palestine question. We therefore welcome the fact that the international community has been able to find a common ground to address the multiple challenges facing the region right now.
So two concerns. One is the loss of civilian lives. More than 18,000 people have been killed in Gaza. Around 40% of them were children. And two, upholding humanitarian laws. We've seen airstrikes on hospitals, reports of forced starvation, and of course, collective punishment. So India has said enough is enough. It's time to implement a ceasefire in Gaza. And it's not just New Delhi. The entire world wants Israel to stop the war now. Let's compare the two resolutions of the United Nations General Assembly. One was in October, the other was yesterday. Both of them called on Israel to stop the fighting. In October, 120 countries voted in favor. 45 countries abstained. But yesterday, the numbers were much higher. 153 countries wanted a ceasefire. That's 80% of all UNGA members, plus only 23 countries abstained from voting. What does that tell you? That Israel is losing the narrative war, and not for lack of trying. Their diplomats at the United Nations have tried multiple strategies. In October, they came wearing yellow stars. It was a symbol used by the Nazis to identify Jews. And yesterday they tried something else. Take a look.
I have an idea. If you want a real ceasefire, here is the right address. This is the phone number of Hamas's office in Gaza. You can all call +970 599 3765 and ask for Yahya Sinwar. Tell Hamas to put down their arms, turn themselves in, and return our hostages. This will bring a complete ceasefire that will last forever.
No luck. 2 amendments were pushed by United Nations members. Both of them tried to add a mention of Hamas to the resolution. Both were shot down. So the message to Israel is clear. We understand the pain caused by the Hamas attack, but killing Gazan civilians is not the answer. Now the question is, will Israel listen? Well, General Assembly resolutions are non-binding. Israel ignored the one in October, and they're doing the same thing again this time. They say the war will continue with or without global support. The only one who can stop them is the United States. If Joe Biden wants to, he can pull the plug. But will he do it? In recent days, US officials have criticized Israel. They've talked about protecting civilians in Gaza. Even President Joe Biden has joined in. He spoke at a campaign event on Tuesday, and he said some very blunt things about Israel. Let me quote from what his speech was. Israel has most of the world supporting it, but they are starting to lose that support by the indiscriminate bombing that takes place. This is Joe Biden saying. Netanyahu is a good friend, but he has to change. He's got to make some moves to strengthen the Palestinian Authority. Now, these are sharp remarks. But at the United Nations, Biden keeps defending Israel. Even yesterday, only 10 countries voted against a ceasefire. The United States was one of them. All of their allies have shifted positions. The Canadians, the Germans, the Australians. Only Washington is stubbornly defending Israel. The question is why? Reports say Biden has given Netanyahu a deadline, the end of 2023. So around 18 days more. By then, he wants Israel to wrap up the war. But frankly, 18 days is a lot. Netanyahu is already under a lot of domestic pressure. The relatives of hostages want him to negotiate. Only yesterday, 2 Israeli hostages were found dead in Gaza. With each passing day, that number could rise. But Netanyahu is not shaken. He admits that there are differences with the US, but he also says the war will go on.
Yes, there is disagreement about the day after Hamas, and I hope that we will reach agreement here as well. I would like to clarify my position. I will not allow Israel to repeat the mistake of Oslo. I will not allow the entry into Gaza of those who educate for terrorism, support terrorism, and finance terrorism. Gaza will be neither Hamastan nor Fatahstan.
That's a defiant war cry. But Netanyahu needs to remember the age-old rule of war. Victory on the battlefield is not enough. You must win the political battle too. What's the use of destroying Hamas if Israel is left isolated, if more enemies pop up elsewhere? We know there's a politician and a military man inside Benjamin Netanyahu. The question is, who is doing the thinking?
لن تتردد في استهداف أي سفينة إسرائيلية في البحر الأحمر أو أي مكان تطاله أيدينا ابتداء من لحظة إعلان هذا البيان. الله أكبر.
That's the Houthis for you. They said they would attack every ship heading to Israel. But now they're doing that and more. Just ask the Japanese or the French or the Americans or the Norwegians. All of their ships have been targeted by the Houthi rebels of Yemen. And we've discussed them before. They're a Shia armed group in Yemen, the Houthis. They're funded and supported by Iran. And since October this year, they've been attacking ships. The latest was on Monday. And the target? A cargo ship named Strinda. It's owned by a Norwegian company. It was going from Malaysia to Italy when it was attacked. Not Israel, Italy. The ship was hit by a Houthi cruise missile. A fire broke out on the vessel, but reports say no casualties. Now here's the issue. This ship was owned by a company in Norway. It was manned by an Indian crew. It was heading to Italy. There is no Israel link so far. Then why did the Houthis target it? Their spokesman believes the ship was heading to Israel. He also said the crew was warned. Listen to this.
Yemeni forces did not resort to targeting the Norwegian ship loaded with oil until its crew rejected all warning calls. The Yemeni armed forces will not hesitate to target any ship that violates what was stated in the previous statements. The Yemeni armed forces confirmed that they continue to prevent all ships of all nationalities heading to Israeli ports from navigating in the Arab and Red Seas until they bring in the food and medicine that our steadfast brothers in the Gaza Strip need.
A couple of things to note here. First, the attacks will continue. That's the message from the Houthis. And two, there is only one way to stop them. Implement a ceasefire in Gaza. Get food and aid to the people living in the Gaza Strip. And do not dismiss their threat. The Houthis have attacked multiple vessels since October. The first was on the 19th of November. They seized a commercial ship called Galaxy Leader. It's still stuck in the Red Sea. And guess what? The Houthis have converted it into a tourist attraction.
Today, we are on board of the Israeli ship, the Galaxy Leader, that has turned into an attraction. Instead of being a shipping vessel for the Israelis, it turned into an attraction for Yemenis from all provinces. A big number of Yemeni people are touring it every day. Instead of going to parks and beaches, they are now visiting the Galaxy Leader ship.
It's amusing, I know, but it also tells you how confident they are. They're not hiding the seized vessel or taking it to a friendly port. They're openly flaunting it. And that confidence shows in their recent attacks. In the first week of December, 3 ships were attacked, all commercial vessels. One missile was even fired at a US warship. Imagine that, a frontal attack on an American ship. Luckily, it was intercepted. But what are governments doing about all of this? Are they hitting back? Well, some of them are. The United States has multiple warships in the region. One of them seems pretty busy, the USS Carney, the same warship that was targeted by the Houthis. The American Navy has released some pictures from the Carney. It shows the crew intercepting Houthi missiles. Take a look. The French are also hitting back. On Sunday, they shot down 2 Houthi drones. Both of them were targeting French warships. So the risk is huge. The Houthis are not just hitting ships heading to Israel, they're picking random targets, sometimes even military ones. And this risk has put the shipping industry on edge. Let me explain why. The Houthis are based in Yemen. They control most of the country, including the capital, and that gives them access to these routes. Look at this, the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. Both routes lead to the Suez Canal, meaning it's the busiest route between Asia and Europe. Just how busy? Around 12% of global trade passes via the Red Sea, also 10% of seaborne oil. So it's very important. And everyone should care about this, the whole world, because what happens in the Red Sea will impact you wherever you are. It's a simple chain. You see, every ship is supposed to take insurance. They're carrying cargo worth millions of dollars. What if the vessel sinks, or in this case, what if it's attacked? So to avoid losses, these ships must take insurance. Now, the Red Sea is designated as a high-risk area, so the normal insurance won't cut it. Companies will need to pay an additional premium. And how much is that? Before the Houthi attacks, it was 0.03%. Say the ship is worth $10,000, when the premium would be $3, 0.03% of 10,000. That's how it's calculated. But now the premium is up to 0.1%. So the same ship will cost you $10. Do you see the difference here? And of course, $10,000 is just an example. Most ships are worth millions. So even a slight uptick can mean tens of thousands of dollars. And who do you think covers that difference? Us, the consumers. When the insurance cost goes up, we pay more for shipped goods. So the Red Sea attack should worry the whole world. It's not enough to just blame Iran every time the Houthis attack a ship. We need concrete solutions here. Maybe a military escort for cargo ships, or more naval patrols in the region. Or maybe the sure-shot solution of ending the war in Gaza. We kept talking about a spillover in West Asia. Well, it's happened. But it hasn't come from Syria or Lebanon or Iran. It has come from the Houthis of Yemen. Vladimir Putin is back. If you ask him, he'll say he never went away. Now, don't get me wrong, the Russian president was not missing, but his usual confidence was. The swagger that you normally associate with him, the snappy comebacks, all of it had faded since the war in Ukraine. It's back though. Today, Putin resumed his annual ritual, that of a year-end press conference. Last year, he decided not to do it. Ukraine's counter-offensive was making gains, the sanctions were biting Russia, and Putin was persona non grata in many countries. So he skipped the press conference last year. But 1 year later, the equation has flipped. Ukraine's second counter-offensive is stalled, Russia's oil revenue is up, and he's just finished a tour of Saudi Arabia and the UAE. So Putin is confident. Last week, he launched his re-election campaign. This week, he faced the people, all very elaborate. A shiny television set, a hand-picked audience of 600 people, 2 anchors to ask questions, and seated in the middle, the Russian president. Putin doesn't just take questions from journalists here. He also opens up the phone lines. Ordinary Russians can call and ask questions. At least that's what the Kremlin says. Apparently, they received 2 million call requests. Most of them covered 3 topics: the war in Ukraine, public services, and housing. Of course, all the focus was on Ukraine. And guess how long the whole thing lasted? Over 4 hours and 10 minutes. If you're surprised, don't be, because it was not even his personal best. That would be the 2008 press conference. He spoke for 4 hours and 40 minutes. Putin's answers revealed 4 aspects of the Ukraine invasion. Listen to this.
Let's return to these goals. They have not changed. I'll remind you of what we talked about then. The denazification of Ukraine, its demilitarization, its neutral status. As of yesterday evening, I was informed we now had come up with 486,000. The flow of men ready to defend our homeland with arms in hand is not decreasing. 1,500 men join the ranks daily across the country. There is no need for mobilization as of today. Almost along the entire line of contact, our armed forces, to put it modestly, are improving their position. Almost everyone is in an active stage of actions. Throughout the entire length, there is an improvement in the position of our troops. Under these conditions, when the US planned an organized change of power in Ukraine, and Europe is standing silently and watching or even dancing along, how can we build relations with them? We don't mind. It was not us who cut them off, but they're pretending that they don't know or remember anything. What is happening is, of course, a catastrophe. But you and everyone here around the world see it. Look at the special military operation and what is happening in Gaza, and feel the difference. There is nothing like this in Ukraine.
One thing is clear, all those illness rumors are fake. Putin seems fit and fine. As for the invasion, the goals have not changed. The Russian president wants to denazify and demilitarize Ukraine. And today he came with numbers. He knew exactly how many Russians are deployed in Ukraine. 617,000. He also knew the rate of mobilization, 1,500 soldiers per day. If true, These are very impressive numbers. They tell you why the tide is turning. But let's hit pause on the politics for now, because the press conference also had some lighter moments, one of them involving two Putins. That's right, a deep fake Putin and the real one. You have to see this.
Vladimir Vladimirovich, hello, I am a student at St. Petersburg State University. I want to ask, is it true you have a lot of doubles? And also, how do you view the dangers that artificial intelligence and neural networks bring into our lives? Thank you. Well, I see you may resemble me and speak with my voice, but I have thought about it and decided that only one person must be like me and speak with my voice. And that will be me. One of our famous figures used to make such jokes. But regarding the artificial intelligence, by the way, it's my first double.
How about that? Putin is rattling off at press conferences for 4 hours. He jokes with deep fakes. Now compare this to Ukraine. Volodymyr Zelensky visited the US this week. He appealed for more military aid from Washington. No luck though. He returned empty-handed. And now, a second setback is brewing. This time in Brussels, the European Union is holding a key summit. They're discussing Kiev's membership to the bloc, but not everyone is keen. Hungary's Viktor Orban says he won't support it.
Enlargement is a merit-based, legally detailed process which has preconditions. We have set up 7 preconditions, and even by the evaluation of the Commission, 3 out of the 7 is not fulfilled. So there is no reason to negotiate membership of Ukraine now, even not to negotiate.
Orban may not be alone. Another holdout is Slovakia. They elected a new prime minister this year in October. His name is Robert Fico. Now, Fico campaigned on stopping military aid to Ukraine, and in Brussels, he stuck to that.
Yes, it is true that we stopped any military assistance to Ukraine. We will not send anything from state storages from the Slovak army. I openly declared that we do not believe in my government in military solution in Ukraine. The only result will be maybe hundreds and hundreds of thousands victims of this war on both sides of the conflict.
So here's the problem. US military aid could dry up by the end of December, meaning Europe must take the lead now. They will have to cough up money to plug the gap left by Washington. And Brussels does have a plan. They've added $54 billion to their budget. All of it is for Ukraine. $36 billion as loans and $18 billion as grants. Again, Hungary turned out to be the problem. Viktor Orban wanted $11 billion to strengthen his borders to keep migrants out. If not, he threatened to block the budget. At first, Brussels was defiant. They said they will not be blackmailed. But on the eve of the summit, they relented. So Orban is set to get the $11 billion he wanted. And the assumption is that Ukraine will also get the money. Expect champagne and pats on the back. But let's be clear, this is not a viable strategy. And Vladimir Putin realizes this. He was betting on Western support crumbling, and that's exactly what is happening.
Today, Ukraine produces practically nothing. They are trying to save something, but they produce almost nothing. Everything is brought in from other countries for free. But this freebie may end someday. And apparently it is ending little by little.
It's unfortunate for Kiev. This time last year, they were flying high. Putin was on the defensive. Maybe that was the time to attempt a political settlement, to negotiate from a position of strength. But now it's going to be tough. Russia has increased its attacks on Kiev. Their next plan is to cripple Ukraine's energy infrastructure. And we know the Russian winter. Without energy, it will be unbearable. So Zelensky needs to choose. Does he bet on his flimsy Western allies, or does he try talks? Well, Putin's given his answer. Talks or not, Russia wants the Kiev regime toppled. What does it take to be the president of America? Nowadays, the bar is low. Age is clearly not an issue. Neither is impeachment or criminal cases. But what about religion? The US is a majority Christian country. Around 63% of its population is Christian. So can a non-Christian effectively lead the country? That was a question put to Vivek Ramaswamy this week. He's a Republican candidate for president. He's also an Indian American. Ramaswamy was born in the US, but he's a Hindu. So can he be an effective US president? This is what he was asked. Listen to his answer. I'm quoting, "I am a Hindu. I won't fake my identity. Hinduism and Christianity share the same value set in common. My faith teaches me that God puts each of us here for a purpose, that we have a moral duty to realize that purpose. That God works through us in different ways, but we are still equal because God resides in each of us." It's a good answer. A lot of people have praised Ramaswamy on the internet. They appreciated his honesty. He admitted that he is not the best president to spread Christianity, but he also said that is not the president's job. Again, true. A president's job is to make policy, to give people safety and prosperity. Their religion should not be a factor, at least in a secular country. But who are we kidding? Of course it helps. Ramaswamy may be proud of his Hinduism, but his campaign is rooted in conservative Christian values. He opposes abortions. He supports abstinence before marriage. He also says there is one God. And we don't blame him. American politics is very much about Christianity. Let me explain. The US Constitution does not mention God, but their Declaration of Independence does. So do most state constitutions. A 2017 study looked at the number of mentions, and here's what they found. God is mentioned 116 times in state constitutions, Creator 7 times, Providence 3 times, and Christian 7 times. No prizes for guessing which God they're talking about. Same in the US Congress. 88% of US lawmakers identify as Christian. But like I mentioned, only 63% of the general population is Christian. What about US presidents? Most of them were Christians. Only 3 of them are doubtful. Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, and Andrew Johnson. Their affiliation is unknown. The rest were Christians. Also, there's just one religious federal holiday in the US, and that is Christmas. What does all of it tell you? Being a Christian does help in American politics. And don't get me wrong, it does not mean that religious minorities are in crisis or they're being systematically denied access. It's just a key factor in US politics. Just look at the last elections. Joe Biden released an entire campaign video on faith. Take a look.
Personally, for me, faith, it's all about hope and purpose and strength. And for me, my religion is just an enormous sense of solace. I go to Mass and I say the Rosary. I find it to be incredibly comforting. And Kierkegaard said, faith sees best in the dark.
I'm sure you saw the pictures. Biden in a church, Biden with the Pope, Biden with the Rosary. He clearly tapped into the religious vote bank. And it wasn't just Biden. His rival Donald Trump did the same. He said Biden would be, and I'm quoting, Biden would hurt God if elected. Listen to this.
He's following the radical left agenda. Take away your guns, destroy your Second Amendment, no religion, no anything, hurt the Bible, hurt God. He's against God, he's against guns, he's against energy, our kind of energy.
They're doing this for a reason. 20% of Americans want their president to have very strong religious beliefs. 32% of them prefer somewhat strong religious beliefs. My point is, they like religious presidents, which is why Vivek Ramaswamy keeps getting these questions. But has that affected his popularity? Well, Ramaswamy is number 4 in the polls. He's got 5% support. Donald Trump is way ahead at 61%. I guess religion or not, that's a losing race. But kudos to Vivek Ramaswamy for being proud of his identity, for not downplaying his religion. It makes for good headlines, if not a winning strategy. It's Friday, and I'm sure you're looking forward to what lies ahead. So let me ruin it for you by saying that a storm is coming. The world economy is in a precarious position. The IMF has sounded an alarm. Geeta Gopinath says a second Cold War is coming and it will cost us trillions of dollars. Gopinath is the deputy managing director of IMF. She says our world is more divided than ever before and this could reverse economic progress. A second Cold War could slash global GDP by 7%, which would mean a loss of $7 trillion and it would be hard to avoid. The global economy faces three major risks: a trade war, China's economic decline, and the increasing military conflicts. Let's start with the trade war. It's a clash between the superpowers, the United States and China. The world's leading economies, together they account for 43% of the global GDP. But since 2018, they've been at odds. That's when US President Donald Trump slapped tariffs on China. Beijing responded in kind, and it went downhill from there. When Biden took charge of the US, he tried to fix it by reversing Trump's tariffs, but it has not happened yet. He met the Chinese leader last month, that's Xi Jinping, and Xi Jinping said he wants stability. But his actions convey the opposite. China is targeting American businesses, raiding their offices and harassing their employees. So normalization does not look like an immediate possibility. And the economic impact is evident. The World Trade Organization gave an assessment. It says global GDP has lost 0.1% due to it. Economists say this figure does not tell the full story. The trade war will have wider ramifications. It is hurting globalization, breaking the global economy, forcing countries to choose camps and realign trade policies. So the trend is not encouraging, and China's decline could accelerate it. And that's the second risk. China is the world's second largest economy, valued at $18 trillion. That's 18% of the global GDP. But of late, China has been stumbling. Growth is sluggish, youth unemployment is at a record high, and loan defaults are surging. By November end, China had blacklisted more than 8 million people. These are people who defaulted on loans, both household and business debt. So China has blacklisted these citizens, 8 million. And the repercussions are serious. China has a law for this. If you're a defaulter, a declared defaulter, you cannot purchase plane tickets. You cannot even make mobile payments. And this is hurting both people and companies. For instance, manufacturers are struggling. Their profits are down by 9% this year. We're talking about some 13,000 companies. Their profits are down. And these companies are not just from China. They're from the US, Europe, Japan, and other leading economies. All of them depend on the Chinese economy. Let me explain how. China's consumer demand has fallen. People are spending less. So factories are churning out fewer goods and they're reporting a dip in profits. Then we come to the big investors. They're losing money in the Chinese market, so they're pulling it out of China. By August, they'd withdrawn about $10 billion. China's decline is bleeding major economies like Japan. In July, Japan reported a drop in exports. That's because demand from China had weakened. Businesses in Japan got fewer orders. Same with South Korea and Thailand. They've downgraded their economic forecast because both these countries depend on China for business. So China's problem is a global problem. The third risk is the surge in military conflicts. In the past 2 years, we've seen two major wars, Russia versus Ukraine and Israel versus Hamas. Both have jolted the global economy. The Russia-Ukraine war has led to losses of over $2 trillion. And the Israel-Hamas war could cost the world another $1 trillion. That's because it threatens to spread and turn into a wider regional conflict. And remember, these wars are still on, so the costs could rise. So to sum it up, there are three risks: the trade war, China's decline, and the endless military conflicts. They represent uncertainty for the global economy, and uncertainty is anathema to businesses. Unfortunately, there is no immediate solution in sight. In Pakistan, Nawaz Sharif is talking about peace. We've heard that before, but this time he is campaigning on it. Pakistan's elections are slated for February 2024. All bets are on Nawaz Sharif. He returned to Pakistan in October. He's got the army support this time, and his chief rival Imran Khan is in jail. It is the definition of a state-managed election. So the question is, why is he talking about peace with India? It's never been a winning strategy in Pakistan, so why is Sharif doing it? First, listen to his statement over the weekend.
हमारे दौर में इंडिया के 2 वज़ीर आज़म यहाँ पाकिस्तान तशरीफ़ लाए, मोदी साहब और वाजपेयी साहब। इससे पहले कब कभी कोई आया था? और ये कैसे मुमकिन है कि आपके जो है वो हमसाए तो आपसे नाराज़ हों या आप उनसे नाराज़ हों, और उस नाराज़गी के अंदर आप रह के तो आप दुनिया में कोई मकाम हासिल करें। आप अपने मामलात को हमें इंडिया के साथ भी ठीक करना है, अपने मामलात को हमने अफ़गानिस्तान के साथ भी ठीक करना है, हमने अपने मामलात को ईरान के साथ भी मजबूत करना है।
And he did not stop there. Nawaz Sharif also talked about the Kargil war. He was Pakistan's Prime Minister back then, and his role has been heavily debated. Did he know but disapprove, or did he support? Sharif says he did push back against the generals, and that is why he was toppled in 1999.
मुझे पता लगना चाहिए कि 1999 में क्यों निकाला गया, कि हमने जो है वो मामलात को सही तरह संभाला, और हमने अपना कहा कि हम ये कारगिल में लड़ाई नहीं होनी चाहिए थी, इसलिए निकाल दिया।
Seems like a virus going around. First, Imran Khan started praising India. He brought sound bites of India's foreign minister to his rallies. Then Nawaz Sharif joined in. In September, he was all praises for New Delhi. He talked about India's moon landing and the G20 summit. Of course, this is all campaign talk. It's what they do in office that really matters. But elsewhere, Pakistan is chasing a reset, like with the United States. Army Chief Asim Munir is heading to the US. It's his first trip to America after taking office in 2022. He's visited Saudi Arabia. He's visited China and the UAE, but he did not visit the United States before this. And while there, he will hold talks with senior politicians and military officers. It follows some key defense deals between Pakistan and the US. First was an F-16 upgrade package. It was approved last year. The package was worth around $450 million. The second was signed this year, that too in a very secretive manner. Reports say it could set the stage for more military purchases. So Pakistan and the US are doing business again. This was not the case after the fall of Kabul. The Biden administration was unhappy with Imran Khan. In fact, Joe Biden did not have a single phone conversation with Imran Khan, not even one. Imagine that, 2 years, 0 phone calls. So why the U-turn now? Islamabad needs American help with bailouts. Plus, Chinese funding is not really up to the mark. This year, Beijing refused multiple projects proposed by Pakistan. So what does Islamabad do? Attempt a reset. Could that also be one reason for the sudden outreach to India? Well, Washington has not said very much. They say they support direct talks between India and Pakistan, but beyond that, nothing. But recently, New Delhi and Islamabad have found themselves in similar circles. They both buy Russian energy. They're both close to the US. And now Pakistan wants to join the BRICS. So I come back to my question. Why is Pakistan talking about peace with India, and why now? 2024 is election year in Pakistan, India and the US, so major foreign policy changes are very unlikely. New Delhi hinted at the same last week. The foreign ministry spokesperson was asked about Pakistan's attempt to join the BRICS. Listen to the response.
इस पर्टिकुलर एप्लीकेशन के बारे में मेरा कोई कमेंट नहीं है, पर मैं सिर्फ ये कहना चाहता हूँ, आपने पर्टिकुलरली कहा कि कुछ मित्र देशों ने सपोर्ट किया, मैं ये कहना चाहता हूँ और हाईलाइट करना चाहता हूँ कि जो ब्रिक्स की डिसीजंस होती हैं, उसके जो निर्णय लिए जाते हैं, वो सारे कंसेंसस के बेसिस में होता है। मैं इतना ही कहना चाहता हूँ, आप इसका इशारा समझ ही सकते हैं।
So no change in New Delhi, and why would there be? India's position has always been clear. Act on terror, clear up your business, and then we can sit down and talk. So Pakistan needs to show progress, whether it's on cutting support to terror groups or stopping anti-India propaganda. Without that, there can be no reset with India. Nawaz Sharif could be the man for the job. He has a history of progress with India, but the question is, does he have the army's blessings for this? Let's turn to the Maldives, where the new president's tenure is off to a shaky start. His name is Mohammad Muizzu. He is sparring with his political ally, former President Abdullah Yameen. Now, these two leaders are not getting along. Yameen is not happy with Muizzu. They were members of the same coalition. Yameen was in the Progressive Party of the Maldives, PPM. But a few weeks ago, he left to form a new political outfit. And this exit came as a surprise. After all, he was part of the ruling coalition. He had just won the election. The momentum was with Yameen. So why did he leave? There's a lot of buzz in Mali. Reports say Yameen's exit is because of Mohamed Muizzu, the new president. His party is called the People's National Congress, the president's party. Together, Yameen and Muizzu fought this election. And they won. Muizzu became president. But now Yameen feels betrayed. His loyalists say their party has been hijacked and that Muizzu is sidelining them. Yameen's lawyer is a man called Mohammed Jamil. He gave an interview recently and he made some big claims. He said Yameen's party leaders are blocking his involvement. They're not letting him run the party. They're ignoring his orders. Sounds like a coup. Apparently engineered by President Muizzu. That's what the lawyer says, that Muizzu has been ignoring Yameen. He hasn't taken a single call from him. In fact, let me quote from that interview. This is what Yameen's lawyer said. I want to make one thing clear to the people. Dr. Muizzu has not picked up a single phone call from President Yameen since winning the election. If true, this exposes a rift. And it's backed by multiple observers. They say Yameen is infuriated with President Muizzu. He believes that the president used his name and his platform to win the election. The platform is India Out. It was their biggest rallying point, the India Out campaign. And Yameen was the face of this campaign. He was the one who made this election about opposing India. He wanted Indian troops to leave Mali. There are about 70 of them stationed in the Maldives, 70 Indian soldiers. They're there to support the Maldivian Defense Forces. But Yameen wanted them to leave, and he gave the slogan, India Out. It caught on. But Yameen could not contest the election. He was convicted last year in a money laundering case and sentenced to jail for 11 years. When their coalition won the election, his jail term was converted into house arrest. But like I said, he could not contest the polls. Initially, he wanted to boycott them, but later Yameen ended up backing Muizzu. And in return, Muizzu made a pledge. He promised to uphold Yameen's campaign promises, including the India Out campaign. And that's what he did. He kept his promise. Right after the swearing in, he spoke to the Indian leadership. He raised the issue of the Indian military presence. Muizzu has formally sought a withdrawal. The discussions are on, but Yameen is not in the picture. He is not part of the talks with India. He doesn't hold a position in the government, and now he's not even part of the ruling coalition. It's a win-win for Muizzu, really. He's replaced Yameen. He's become the face of the India Out campaign, and despite Yameen's exit, the president enjoys the support of his party. Many senior leaders of Yameen's former party have spoken out. They say they support President Muizzu. In fact, a hashtag is doing the rounds. I stand with Muizzu. That's what it says, the hashtag. I stand with Muizzu. The Maldivian defense minister is from the same party. Here's what he said, and I'm quoting. The PPM is with President Muizzu. We are joining hands in defense of President Muizzu's government. If this wasn't bad enough, listen to this. The defense minister is a nephew of Yameen. So the statement was brutal. And the writing is on the wall. The tables have turned on Yameen. He wanted India out of the Maldives. India is still there. Yameen is the one who's been pushed out. The world belongs to early risers, and we're just living in it. We have heard it all before. The early bed bird gets the worm. Early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy and wise. World leaders swear by these quotes, like Mahatma Gandhi and Winston Churchill. Despite all their differences, they were both early risers. So are many of the world's most successful people. Apple CEO Tim Cook gets up at 3:45 a.m. Former PepsiCo CEO Indra Nooyi wakes up as early as 4 a.m. Indian billionaire Mukesh Ambani wakes up at 5:30 a.m. Everyone wants to be a virtuous early bird. Some do it better than others. Colombia is the earliest riser in the world at 6:31 a.m., followed by Indonesia and Japan. By comparison, India wakes up at 7:36 a.m., America's 7:20 a.m., Russia's 8:06 a.m. So differences exist. But it is demanded of everyone that they wake up early, which is easier said than done. If you are just not a morning person, science says you may never be. And this is not because you smash your alarm clock when it rings or because you have deep-seated hatred for the sun. It is because of your genes. And you can blame the Neanderthals for this. They were a species of archaic humans. They're extinct now. They were alive until about 40,000 years ago. But they intrigue science even today. Modern humans, or our ancestors, procreated with them. They passed down fragments of their DNA. Some of it is still found in living humans. It gives us survival advantage, makes us more immune to disease, influences our appetite, and even affects how or when we sleep. Now, a new study is out. It says Neanderthals were morning people. They lived in Eurasia on higher altitudes, where days became shorter in the winter. So they woke up early to collect food as soon as the day began. Over hundreds of thousands of years, their body clocks adapted to this geography, and their descendants with modern humans inherited these body clock genes. So many people who are early risers today probably have these genes. From an evolutionary perspective, being an early riser makes sense. You can gather more food. You can also stand guard against wild beasts that emerge in the wee hours. But in today's day and age, how important is it to be a lark? Should you force yourself to wake up early? I will let you decide that. Just for a minute, let's ignore the pedestal that hails morning people. I'm going to look at both the feathered categories, the early birds, who are more active in the morning, and the night owls, those who thrive in the dark. It is estimated that 50% of the world does not fit in either of these categories. As for the remaining half, roughly 25% of people are early risers, another 25% are night owls. Does this mean that night owls are always late to work or that early risers don't party till dawn? According to science, the difference lies in their inherent qualities. Morning people are said to be more analytical and cooperative, more persistent. They set higher goals for themselves, plan for the future more, and have a better sense of well-being. This is what science says. On the other hand, night owls are said to be more imaginative and individualistic, more creative, more open to new experiences or taking chances. Now, whichever side you pick, you will find redeeming qualities. Yet, our society tends to reward only 25% of the world's population. It is time to rethink that. Appending your natural body clock is like trying to be someone else. It is a waste of who you are. So redefine what success means to you and put this debate of waking up to bed. Our last story tonight is about a newly encroaching species. Its members are commonly spotted during after hours, shopping in gourmet grocery aisles or heading to the newest pubs. They have switched Uggs for high fashion boots, and they vacation like they don't give a hoot. I'm talking about DINKs. If the anthropological description was too much for you, let me put it simply. DINK is an acronym. It stands for Households with a Double Income and No Kids, DINK, double income, no kids. Basically, a working couple without children. DINKs are all the rage these days. Social media is flooded with hashtag DINK. It's got over 420 million views just on TikTok. But as much as Gen Z and millennials are embracing this concept, they did not come up with the term. It was the boomers. Those born between 1946 and 1964, the term DINK originated in the US. In the late 1980s, the economy was in recession, the cost of raising children rose dramatically. To raise a child up to the age of 18, parents were shelling out $100,000. So many of them stopped having children. They embraced the DINK lifestyle, because being a DINK is not always about freedom or preference, it can also be an economic choice. Today, the cost of raising children is soaring again. It's about $310,000 in the US, almost 3 times what it was in the 1980s. So 44% of American adults say they do not want to have children. Fertility rates are declining, DINKs are making a comeback, and they're winning the economy. Out of different types of families, child-free couples have the most average savings and the highest median net worth. To put it simply, if Beyonce sang about the cost of living crisis, she would probably say something like, "Who run the economy? Dinks." But remember, not all dinks are created equal. There are also dink wads, meaning double income, no kids with a dog. DINKWAD. Then there are dink wads, double income, no kids with a house. DINKWAH. So the budgeting differs. But no matter the category, this trend is picking up the world over. It's not just a Western or urban aspiration. In India, for instance, 42% of two-member rural families are dinks, compared to 22% in similar urban families. For a middle-income Indian household, the cost of raising a child to adulthood is $160,000. And that is a price tag many young Indians cannot bear. So for them, being childless is a financially intelligent choice. As of today, it doesn't bother India, but for China, this dink generation is a ticking time bomb. China is one of the most costly countries in the world to raise a child. It's about 7 times their GDP per capita. So people are having fewer children, the birth rate has plummeted to a record low, and the country has 500,000 dinks. South Korea is even worse. 57% of their population is a dink family, because here the cost of raising a child is 7.79 times higher than its GDP per capita, the highest in the world. Korean newlyweds also have record high debt, and the result is one of the lowest birth rates in the world. I'm sure it's clear by now that governments do not love dinks. They see them as the cause of the population crisis. You may remember North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. He was in tears urging women to have babies. And then we have the likes of Elon Musk. He doesn't like dinks either. He said, and I'm quoting, "It's an awful morality to deliberately have no kids." Musk himself has 10 kids that we know of, also about $245 billion, and a lot of unfiltered opinion, so he can say what he likes. But according to experts, this is the best time to be a dink. Millennials are cash-strapped. Gen Z only dreams of a comfortable life. The young increasingly do not care about traditional milestones like owning a house or getting married. But the child-free choice is not without its downsides. You get fewer tax deductions. Passing potential assets becomes tougher. And emotionally, who takes care of you when you're old? What if loneliness creeps in? So there's a lot to think about. At the end of the day, of course, it's about choice, to be with or without children, to get a pet or a plant. It's about creating a family that works for you. Or as the internet says, you do you.